And then we've got the on-chain cost basis here, which I think is probably driving some of your kind of price levels that you're talking about earlier. So explain what on-chain cost basis is, and then why you're so fixated on the numbers that you're talking about with 53, 40, et cetera.
So we're just looking at the average price of which investors bought in on chain. For like technical traders, what I would say is the way to think of this is like a VWAP, so volume weighted average price. And so this price level has been really important. If we zoom out, you'll see this has served as support for the 2017 bull market. Once we broke below, we flipped bearish, and then we kind of had these failed underside retests the whole way down into the bottom of the bear in 2018. Once we got back above this, we came back off of the lows in the bottom of the bear. We broke below this about 2 weeks ago. Went below 53K. And what I said was until we reclaim this, I maintain, kind of this cautious stance. And I still do. So that sits right around 53K. That also aligns with kind of technical, this kind of nice technical level, as well as the $1 trillion market cap threshold. And so, this is why I keep saying 53K. I'm sure people are like tired of hearing that. That's kind of where I'm getting that number from. So, once we get back above that, I'll happily, load on BTC. And just to be clear, I have a DCA that I'm regularly DCing into. I also have a trading portfolio. So when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about my trading portfolio. If we get back above 53, I'd love to just happily pile back in. But until then, I kind of maintain, caution in that sense. So I would look to either buy the 53K, break, or I would look to kind of, buy if we retest that wick down, below, call it, between 42 to 45K with invalidation at 40K. So those are kind of the two areas that I'm kind of looking to do business, if you will. But for the bulls, you want to see 53K get reclaimed. But in terms of like where I would buy, it would either be, reclaiming that level, or, looking for some kind of, buy below this, if we swing the wick, down to 42, 45K, and then invalidation would be at 40K.
Got it. Joe, what question you got?
Well, what's going on, man? Good to see you again. So my question would just be around like you personally, how do you look at the more high level macro stuff, right? So we got news yesterday that they're signaling 3 rate hikes for 2022. How does this impact your view from the on-chain side?
Being like a Bitcoin analyst, I think it's definitely something you need to keep in mind. But at the same time, like, I'm not going to sit here and like pretend that I'm like this expert macro analyst, right? And so like, I think it's almost difficult enough already to keep up with the Bitcoin market, let alone like predict, what's going to go on with macro. And so the way I kind of look at this is like, if investor behaviors change, then you'll see that through price and on-chain data. And so those are kind of the two like true tellers, because obviously like macro included in this, like there's a lot of variables, right? And so to kind of just like get the signal of all of that information, in a concise way, you can look at what's the behavior of the investors on chain, and the purest version of that is just looking at what the price action is telling you, because that's the aggregated opinion of all market participants about all information given, right? And so I don't really like try to read too much into what's going on with the Fed. I have people much smarter than me that I listen to in that regard. But in terms of like what the market thinks about it, I just watch what happens, with price and what happens in the on-chain data to kind of gauge what people are making of that, because, that's like literally telling you the reaction of people to all the information at hand. So.
Yep. Gotcha, man. Thanks. John?
Will, so my question is, it's not funny. My question is around kind of the halving cycles and where you think we are. So we obviously had a halving in 2020. We're going to have another one in 2024, but we went up in the spring, down in the summer, up in the fall. It looks like we're kind of consolidating what people consider a bull market. What are your thoughts around the halving and like the price of Bitcoin right now?
Yeah, I think there's a correlation, but I don't really think it matters, to be honest. And the reasoning is because the supply shock, if you will, that it has on the market is completely diminished from like the first one. So like, the first halving in 2013 was pretty significant given the issuance versus the amount of circulating supply. But at this point, the next halving will pretty much just be irrelevant in terms of the magnitude of it. And then second of all, the other reason I'm kind of talking about like veering from these 4-year cycles is just the type of market participant that we have. I think these are much more sophisticated market participants, and not to say that we won't have 50 to 80% drawdowns. I just kind of lean away from this very clean, looking, 4-year logarithmic kind of, we cup up, have a parabolic blow off top, come back down, sit this, the just traditional, whenever you look at like logarithmic regression charts for Bitcoin. And I think too many people, and this is like my pinned tweet, is like too many people have been trying to, project the past onto the future rather than think like, what does the future look like? And so by no means am I saying that we're going to go up forever at all. I mean, obviously, like I've been actually kind of like standing away from that. But when someone talks about like what is a super cycle, right? A super cycle would be, kind of having these rounded tops and bottoms moving forward without any kind of major, blow off top. So like my invalidation for my idea here would be if we do have a blow off top. Like if we have a blow off top, I would very much expect that we have some kind of, prolonged bear market. But until we have, some kind of parabolic blow off top, I think we'll continue to kind of see these rounded tops and bottoms moving forward. And that's just a reflection of the type of like market participant that we have now.
Is it fair to say the halving in 2013 wasn't almost priced in because it was so significant on the amount of Bitcoin that got cut in half, and then people are starting to realize that it is a little bit, or no?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the case back in 2013. But by now, I if anything, it's just like a psychological thing of people say like, oh yeah, well, whenever this happens, right? Rather than like the amount of supply getting cut in half actually having like a material effect on, the supply demand dynamics in the market. With that being said, though, I don't think that means that, as soon as the halving happens, people say like, oh, well, every time there's a halving, price goes up. If you think that's the case, then it just gets front ran, right? Like, the type of investors we have now in the market are really smart. So, they're just going to say, oh, well, if this happens every time that there's a halving, then we'll just front run that. So, I'm not like paying too much attention to the halving moving forward. I just think we're kind of, I'm not saying like, oh, this time is different per se. I just think like we have a different type of market participant, and so the market structure is going to change, and it won't just be a repetitive, 4-year cycle. I just think kind of that's like intellectually lazy, and I think like that's just, it'd be very nice for crypto natives because then they could just, buy in the bear and then just sell off in the bull and then just chill until the next, bull market. I just don't think that's really going to be how it goes. I think also like talking to some people who are, obviously I'm a kid, so like I don't talk to like a bunch of institutions, but talking to people who do, like I don't think you're going to see like capital, coming into the space slow down. And also, it takes time. So like over the last year or so, if you had, different institutions that are looking to allocate, it takes them, sometimes like a year plus or 2 years plus to, be able to get to the point of making the decision that they want to start allocating to being able to actually allocate, especially for some of these like public companies. They're like big, like bureaucratic, institutions. So, I just think like over time, you're going to see the market structure change. And my base case for what that will look like is just that we have these rounded tops and bottoms. And then the invalidation for that is if we do see some kind of like parabolic blow off top.